Welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to inspect the gears and the transfer case overall. And spoiler alert, it doesn't look great. So to start with, I've got the gears degreased and dried off. I haven't yet soaked them in Evapor Rust, but that'll probably come soon. Starting off with this rear output gear, the teeth actually look really good. I was kind of hopeful on this gear. And the little chevrons here, I mean, a couple of them are a little bit chipped up, but maybe those could have been dressed, but the inside is trashed. I would have been okay with just a few little scratches or something. I don't know if I can even get the camera in there well enough to focus, but this inside is like, there's a huge chunk out of the inside right there. And a couple more. And there's a good deep scratch. Then we're kind of back where we started. So yeah, I don't know if I could actually run this or not. That looks pretty bad. The rest of the surface, while smooth, does feel uneven, so this one's probably a no-go, unfortunately. It's a shame because it doesn't have all that much rust on the teeth. This one, the teeth actually look pretty good. There's a little bit of rust on it, but they're not terribly deeply pitted. So I'm pretty sure this one could be reused. This one might be okay. But when you put this other one that I had already kind of planned to replace in, there's a lot of slop in that. I don't know if it's supposed to have that much. So, yeah. But this one might actually be okay. Then again, it might not. Now that I look at the inside, you can see that there's a very noticeable chunk missing on every single one of these. I really hope that's coming through on the camera. Ugh. Then we come to the intermediate gear, which I don't think is okay. It does have some rust pits on this surface, but the real damage, as we saw in the previous video, was right here. That is very deeply pitted and very rusty. Really not great. The inside surface has similar rust, at least on this side. And it, since this is like an inner bearing surface, I guess you could call that brindled because it's got the same wear lines you would expect from like roller bearings, which I guess these take a caged needle bearing. Then we get to the gear teeth surfaces, and there's a pretty significant amount of rust on these. Most of them look worse than they are, but I don't think a lot of this would smooth out. Then we get to the other side of the gear, and you've got whole gear teeth that are just nothing but rust. It's raised up and pretty nasty looking, so it's frustrating because the next three teeth are like new, just mint. They're great. Then you get this rusted side. But as far as the gear set here goes, I think I'm gonna have to source a good US made set for for 2 out of 3 at least. Speaking of gears that were in the transfer case, this is that output off of the transmission. Somehow got some oil on it again, but it's got kind of the same situation going on. This thing never had a PTO on it, so this kind of gives me a reference of what this gear over here is supposed to look like. without all the chips and rounded off edges. But these teeth are so rusted, so pitted, so uneven that I'm afraid that this one would be a no-go should I choose to replace this intermediate gear. Now, I haven't gotten into too much else just yet, we'll get there, but I was looking at this front casting since it's sitting right here in front of me. I thought it was odd that it had this little lip here and had this really rough casting looking thing here. But then I look at a picture of what that is supposed to look like. Yeah, someone must have dropped this thing because it's supposed to have a lip around the entire thing. So that's something. Whether it's worthy of replacement or not, I don't know. But I don't like how that looks. Based on the initial assessment of parts and such, I'm relatively sure that most of my gears, 3 out of 4 of my gears at least, are not going to work. But just to be certain, I went ahead and picked up some fresh Evappo Rust. Lasts a while, it just doesn't last forever. And we're just going to soak these in some fresh Evappo Rust so we'll quickly know. That's soaking. Here's the front output shaft that was pretty well rusted. Pretty sure that this is too rusted on these because that front yoke just comes right off. But I think this surface here is too worn because when you put it in the output shaft, it just wobbles. That spacer ring is pretty well worn, but it's just a spacer, so flip it over, it's brand new. Hey, why not? The big one here, I'm relatively certain that I'll be replacing this gear, this intermediate gear, because of the rust on these surfaces and the rust on the inside. The teeth aren't that bad, honestly, except for right there. But we'll give it a soak and we'll see what happens. The output gear has some significant wear, even though the teeth are pretty good, but we'll soak it and see what we come up with. And the sliding gear, I think I'll have to wait until the next round. So we'll let that soak for a few hours. Usually I'd let it soak overnight, but since this stuff is brand new, it should work pretty quick. Went ahead and let this soak overnight. It's definitely not clear anymore. Let's see what we got. It's amazing how much cleaner these come out. Evappo Rust has a detergent property in there. It'll break down oil, so these things will come out extremely clean. Yeah, that looks a great deal better. Sliding gears up next. That'll soak probably half the day. While I'm at it, we'll just throw the whole output shaft in. Didn't have more than a few specks of rust on it, but why not? You go rinse these off and we'll dig into it a little bit more. Maybe someday I'll actually have a workbench, but today I have this little corner cleared up. Castle nut came out perfect. This came out way better. It's actually gray instead of rust. Gears, all that. So, intermediate gear. Still don't think I can use it. All this surface rust is gone. The surface is pretty smooth, except on these dark areas where that raised, nasty rust was. It's now pitted, and it catches your thumbnail as you go along it, so it's probably no bueno. The teeth came out looking quite a bit better, but they're not smooth at all. That one's deeply pitted. This side honestly didn't improve all that much. There's still a little bit of deep rust on there. This could soak for a little bit longer in there, but in the end it doesn't really matter. And of course the inside, as I already knew, is trashed. So we're gonna replace the intermediate gear. This front output shaft, again, it cleaned up pretty well. But what this is not supposed to do, it's not supposed to just wobble around like that. So certainly this bushing is gonna have to be changed out. What I am not clear on is if there's actually a bunch of wear on this surface. And I guess I won't really know that until I change out that bushing. The front yoke does not really hold on to these very well. And I don't know if that's just an out-of-spec aftermarket yoke or what. But this was pretty rusted, so it's possible that some of this material has just been lost and it's not going to form a great seal. I don't know yet. But at the very least, this is on the front output side, so I could probably actually remove this later on with it all installed on the Jeep. There's that output gear. This surface is still rough, mainly on that inside part. I don't know how well this is going to show up on the camera, but there's just whole chunks missing out of the inside surface, so that alone tells me I shouldn't use this. But the gear teeth came out great. All the little bits of rust are gone. So of all of the gears, this one could have been reused if it weren't for that inside damage. It's pretty significant. I guess some of the little chevrons on the top of this are really worn down. So unfortunately I get to replace that. Here's the gear off the back of the transmission. If you recall, this one was pretty significantly rusted. The teeth were just kind of shot. There's a whole lot of this black oxide on the teeth. That's just left over from all the rust. That might wire wheel off, but the teeth surfaces are not smooth at all. And dressing that with a file would be very, very time consuming, and I don't think it'd be worth it in the end. We'll have to wait to see how the sliding gear turns out, and the main shaft, though, or the output shaft, though, doesn't need all that much. Pretty sure I already covered it, but yeah, the speedometer gear, that is junk. It is so worn down. This almost makes me believe that the odometer, which read like 89,000 miles, was accurate. So I think that's pretty much it for the majority of the components. It's going to be a lot replaced, unfortunately, but that's what happens when you get into one of these things. So that's it for the major inspection. I do know I have a few of these holes, especially on the front part, that I need to file down because they're sitting proud of that surface. But dressing that up is quick and easy. So I'll sandblast this case, get it all painted, file those down, get it all touched up as it'll probably need, and that'll be that for the case. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll get some parts on order and start moving forward on this, hopefully. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.